It's an unsettling feeling, one that challenges the very foundation of how they viewed themselves. When a man walks away, he not only removes his physical presence, but also the validation and attention she relied on. The result is not just emotional discomfort, it's an identity crisis. She's forced to ask herself tough questions about her worth, and the answers are not always easy to find. The emotional toll of this self-reflection can be profound. For some women, the very act of self-doubt leads them to reflect on past decisions, and in doing so, they might question everything about the relationship, their own actions, the decisions they made, and what went wrong. In this phase, self-doubt is the precursor to a shift. She may spend endless hours reflecting, questioning, and ultimately processing what's happening. It is during this time that she begins to shift from confusion to a deeper understanding of herself, her desires, and what she truly needs from a relationship. However, before she can fully understand these truths, the next phase will inevitably come rationalization, and this is where the emotional cycle begins to spiral even deeper. Phase 3. Rationalization, rewriting the narrative. As the woman grapples with the emotional turbulence of rejection and confusion, she enters a crucial phase of coping rationalization. The rejection, the silence, and the emotional void left by the man's absence are too overwhelming to accept at face value. To protect her ego and shield herself from the pain, she begins to rewrite the narrative in her mind. In this phase, instead of fully confronting the reality that she may have lost someone who truly stood up to her and challenged her, she tries to convince herself that it wasn't a loss at all. The man's departure must be framed in a way that preserves her self-image and deflects any blame or responsibility. Let's return to Sarah. In the days following the man's withdrawal, she starts to tell herself stories to soften the blow. She might convince herself that the man wasn't that into her anyway. He was too obsessed, she rationalizes. It was overwhelming. I couldn't deal with it. She might confide in her friends, repeating variations of, he was way too clingy, or I wasn't really feeling it anymore. In doing so, she shifts the blame away from herself, casting the relationship in a light that makes it easier to move on. She is no longer a woman who lost control. She's now a woman who chose to walk away from someone who was simply too much for her to handle. The rationalization process isn't about convincing others, it's about convincing herself. She needs to feel that she still holds the upper hand, that she wasn't the one left behind or rejected, but rather the one who made the decision to end things. The story she tells herself is one that restores a sense of control, allowing her to hold on to her pride and self-esteem. When she tries to rationalize her actions, it's not about convincing the world, it's about convincing herself that she's still in control. This narrative shift serves to protect her ego from the harsh reality that she was not in control after all. The truth, which she knows deep down, is that she was never the one fully in control. But admitting this would mean confronting a vulnerability she's not ready to face. Her identity is threatened by the idea of having lost power and control, so she chooses to rewrite the story. The ego's defense mechanism. Rationalization serves as a defense mechanism that shields her from feeling the full weight of emotional loss. The pain of realizing that she wasn't the one calling the shots, that she couldn't make the man chase her anymore, is too much to bear. Instead, she reconstructs the situation in a way that minimizes her emotional vulnerability. She may convince herself that the relationship wasn't all that great, that it had flaws she never noticed, or that she was never truly invested. In fact, she might even try to convince herself that he wasn't the right one for her, despite all evidence to the contrary. She'll suppress the memory of their intimate moments, the laughter they shared, and the love that once felt so real. In her mind, he was just another temporary chapter, and it's easier to justify that than to admit that she's the one who lost something meaningful. The dangerous consequences of rationalization. While rationalization helps her temporarily avoid the pain of emotional vulnerability, it can have dangerous consequences. In an attempt to protect her self-image, she may inadvertently build emotional walls. The longer she continues to rationalize, the harder it becomes to face the deeper emotional truths of what really happened. The lies she tells herself to avoid feeling the hurt create a false sense of closure, even though she hasn't fully processed or healed from the situation. The most dangerous outcome of this rationalization phase is the tendency to rebound into another relationship prematurely. Since she has convinced herself that the previous relationship wasn't worth pursuing, she might jump into a new one without giving herself time to heal. Often, the new partner becomes a temporary escapee, a way to distract herself from the deeper emotional wounds that remain unaddressed. She may not even recognize it at first, but she's seeking validation from someone else to fill the emotional void left by the previous man. Rationalization can act as a catalyst for emotional avoidance. Instead of truly reflecting on what went wrong, she seeks solace in someone else, hoping that this will replace the lost connection. But because she hasn't done the work to understand why the relationship ended, she may find herself repeating the same patterns, entering relationships that aren't healthy or fulfilling, all while avoiding the deeper introspection she needs for long-term healing. Rationalization in action. For example, Sarah might meet someone new shortly after the man walks away. At first, she tells herself, "I'm not looking for anything serious, but I'm just having fun." But deep down, she's trying to fill the emotional void left by her previous relationship, seeking temporary validation and an emotional high. This is often driven by the unconscious belief that if she can make someone else chase her, it'll prove that she's still desirable, still worthy of attention. However, this rebound relationship rarely leads to fulfillment because it's built on a foundation of emotional escape rather than genuine connection. At the same time, Sarah might continue to tell herself that the man who walked away was just a blip in her life. She'll downplay the connection they had, telling herself that it wasn't all that great to begin with. But deep down, she knows the rationalizations are a way of avoiding the pain of loss. She's unable to fully acknowledge how much he meant to her or the impact his absence has had on her emotional world. The self-protection mechanism. The rationalization phase is all about self-protection. It's a way for the woman to protect her sense of self-worth, her identity, and her emotional security. By rewriting the narrative, she tries to regain control over a situation that left her feeling powerless and vulnerable. It's a natural, albeit sometimes harmful, response to rejection, but it often delays the process of true healing. It allows her to move forward in a way that seems safer, but it also keeps her from fully processing and understanding the emotional impact of the relationship's end. As she moves through this phase, she may feel temporary relief, but it won't last. The next phase, emotional numbness or resentment, is likely to follow. Rationalization might protect her for a while, but eventually she'll have to confront the deeper emotional truths about herself and the relationship if she is to heal and grow from the experience. Only then can she break free from the cycle of rationalization and move toward genuine emotional growth and self-empowerment. The rebound, the desperate search for validation. The rebound phase is often an inevitable reaction to emotional pain. After experiencing rejection or emotional withdrawal, the woman's psychological defense mechanisms kick in. One of the most prominent defense mechanisms she might employ is the rebound relationship. This phase is characterized by a desperate search for validation, a craving for attention that will make her feel wanted again. In her emotional turmoil,